Beloved Lodge Block Association was going to be, the women were going to be moved out and men were going to move in. So last week at the Health and Human Services Committee, over 60 people from the street, including residents of the shelter, came and spoke at the Health and Human Services Committee. A resolution was passed unanimously, and it will be coming before you tonight. Unfortunately, there are not just rumors, but word on the street that women may be moved out tonight. So the Block Association is having a vigil up at 107th Street. Kurt is here representing the Block Association and wants to return to the vigil. So I've invited him to speak first, and then go back to the vigil, and then we will vote on this when it comes up in the
Thank you. So we have a very strong, goes back 10 decades, and we have a very strong block association, thanks to Kathy Lynn Warren, her neighbors many years ago. About 5 years ago, DHS put in a women's shelter for transitional women. They are employable, and they wanted to put 180, and we got together and we formed a community action board, and we forced them to only put in 120. It's been going along really well. Our community can say we have a successful shelter in its neighborhood, and we want to keep it. Ironically, and I don't know what Mayor de Blasio and Department of Homeless Services are doing in Help USA, but ladies and gentlemen, ironically, most neighborhoods fight to keep out a shelter, and we're fighting to keep a shelter there, and we're fighting the Department of Homeless Services. What they want to do is, thank you, Penny, CB7, Gail Brewer's office. They notified us 2 weeks ago. DHS declared an emergency. When they declare an emergency, everything goes out the door. Protocols, approvals, what you guys put in place to help the community just goes out the door. Turns out they were going to replace 120 women who are our neighbors. They were going to evict them, displace them, and replace them with 120 men. Same amount. They're discriminating against women. They are not working with the community. 2 weeks ago when we heard, we went to CB7. Unbelievable. Mr. Fine, we had over 60 people. He said, who's here for the shelter? Every single hand went up. It was amazing. We heard on Friday that they were going to evict the ladies in 48 hours. They gave them notices to sign. Turns out we all fought it, the whole block. We got them to stop. We heard today they were having a meeting at 5:30. They expected all of us to be here. We heard about it from the residents. They're crying, they're pleading with us to help. Peter Onstedt and the whole entire block, emails were going around like you wouldn't believe. We have a protest going on right now. Peter tried stopping, along with other neighbors, from it going out. Turns out they backed out of our street. So we're going to be going back to protest. We have Channel 7 there, 1010 Winds is there. We have a lot of press helping us. Anyone from 107th Street or around our block, please come to the protest. And we hope, and we thank you, but we hope that Mayor de Blasio is hearing this, and DHS, because they have to stop a successful shelter from being ruined. Thank you.
I see Councilmember Mark Levine is here.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do want to briefly speak on this topic and only that topic. I know it's on the minds of many of you. I'll start by saying, for those observing, Happy New Year. Shana Tova. Today I sent a letter together with colleagues in government, Borough President Brewer, Congressman Nadler, Assemblymember O'Donnell, and State Senator Jackson, expressing our strong opposition to the removal of the women from the shelter on 107th Street. For those of you who've been on the board for a while, you know that this was a very contentiously negotiated use of that building back in 2010. The community came to an agreement after protracted negotiations with the city, and the community lived up to its side of the bargain. This community has embraced those women as neighbors, as members of our community, and many of them have developed roots here. They have become, they worship in local houses of worship. Many of them are employed. In fact, I believe even over half are employed. In many cases, in jobs nearby. They have developed relationships with local medical providers. It's hard to overstate the extent to which these women who have become cherished neighbors have set down roots in this community and developed relationships amongst each other. And the plan that DHS has put forward to rip that community apart and disperse these women throughout the 5 boroughs is absolutely indefensible. There is no public policy justification for this.
That's right.
This is not even about expanding the size of the shelter system in the midst of a crisis. This is simply about moving people around. People who have been displaced, by definition. That's how they wound up in our shelter system. And they are facing displacement yet again. Although this time it's not at the hands of a landlord, it's at the hands of our own city. And so we have stood up, united, all the elected officials who represent that location to demand that those women be allowed to stay there. I know we've had a desperate shortage of actual information from DHS, which is part of the problem, and I'm happy to answer your questions. I just want to give you one update. Their lack of communication has been frankly unacceptable, but to the extent I understand the status there were letters that were given to the women on Friday that it's sort of a procedural step, which is an announcement that they may be relocated, but that the actual process of relocation will play out over as much as a month or two. There may or may not have been 1 or 2 that have already been relocated. That's a rumor that I haven't been able to confirm, so I don't want to speak on that. But okay, it sounds like okay, so 5 more today. So this is happening in real time, but it's not happening overnight because it is a large shelter, and we are fighting back really hard, hand in hand with all of you who are neighbors, and with all of you on the board who I know share these values. Did you have a question?
Well, yeah, the front presented by elected officials is formidable. I really appreciate it. But we know DHS, we've been down this road before, so one of the guests came to report to us that in the past 90 minutes they started moving women out. So the process was done so that wherever they send them to, they'll be returned in the evening if your collective efforts are
well, that would be our goal. This fight is a long way from over, despite the initial move, it sounds like, of now half a dozen or so. This fight is a long way from over, and our position would be that women who have been relocated should be given the option to return. I'm actually proud of this community. There are communities that fight the existence of every shelter tooth and nail, often in very ugly terms. This is a community that has embraced the shelter and the women who have become our neighbors. It's a beautiful thing. We are only fighting to save this shelter. I don't think that happens very often in New York City politics, but it's happening here on 170th Street on the west side in Community Board 7. That's something I'm proud of, so I have no problem standing up and fighting on behalf of the women. And we're going to push really hard, and I think we have a very strong case. As I mentioned, there's no public policy rationale here for moving these women out, and therefore I'm hopeful that we'll prevail. All right, thank you everybody. Congratulations, Madam Chair, on what I believe is your final meeting, and it's been an honor to have you in this role. We look forward to your continued leadership here in the neighborhood. Thank you.
And I look forward to continuing. And I did send a letter on behalf of CB7 last Wednesday to Commissioner Stephen Banks, explaining to him that we found this whole process to be outrageous, and that we wanted an immediate meeting. We are working to have a meeting with DHS with all the elected officials. I see that Senator Jackson is here, so I wanted to invite him up to say hello.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So when I walked in, Mark was talking about the 107th Street shelter, and the letter most of you see here does not have my signature on there. That's because my chief of staff communicated with Gail Brewer's office. We only got it today. And she turned around and said yes to sign me on to it. And they said, then subsequently they said that the letter had already gone out. So the communication was loud and clear. Let me just say to you that I read the letter, and obviously if there has not been any engagement from day one about the process, that is totally unacceptable. And listen, we have a fight also up on Audubon Avenue. As you know, there's the homeless shelter at 168th Street and the Armory that used to have 2,000 people in there. Now it's down to about 200. But obviously the issues and concerns, I don't need to tell you what the issues and concerns are. You know like I know. In fact, my office yesterday had a opioid crisis forum up in northern Manhattan at the church on 181st Street in Fort Washington. But they had said that they were putting a homeless shelter out of a parking lot, rehabbing it for 175 men and on Audubon Avenue between 177th and 178th Street, which was totally unacceptable to the community, considering that we were not engaged in the process at all, and we were told. But then the regulations, my understanding is that the D8, Department of Social Service, Department of Homeless Services, they only have to give 30 days notice from a legal point of view, which in my opinion is totally unacceptable. I just think that we need to change the law on that. In fact, my policy director, Matthew Levy, we've already submitted a bill that once the city of New York is considering, not even decided, considering a homeless shelter in the geographic area, they have to give notice to every elected public official. And that's extremely important. So not even that we've decided that this is where it's going to be and we're letting you know. No, if you're thinking about the geographical area at all, you have to give notice, formal notice, so that the community and the leaders of the community can take hold on this and consider what the situation is. So obviously, if you look at the homeless shelter on Audubon Avenue, that was scheduled to be a men's shelter. Approximately a month ago, or maybe 2 months ago, they notified us and myself as a leader up there that they're going to have it as a women's shelter. Now I say to you, I don't know if that's a switcheroo. Now and I'm giving it to you straight as can be. No BS. So, well, when I heard about this here, they said that they wanted to talk to me about the fact that 107th Street, which is the women's shelter, they were going to switch that to a men's shelter. And now I hear that everything, that no consideration was discussed at all. So that's the situation that I'm in, you understand? And quite frankly, I support both the Washingtonites community and I support the Upper West Side community in its decision as to what we want to do with this. Obviously, they have told us from day one that the hardest individuals, hardest to place are men. And obviously, for me, I can give you more than a dozen reasons why, but obviously you know just as well as I do. So that's the update as far as I know overall.
I know you agree with this because I know who you are and know where you've been, that the community board should be informed along with the elected officials.
Well, I don't think informed. They need to be consulted way in advance.
Oh, yeah.
Way in advance.
Same thing.
That's important to me. But my newsletter, my monthly update is in the back there on the table. Anyone, and if you have any questions about anything that I've said in talking about the shelter, please reach out to me. You can just email me at robertjacksonnewyork@gmail.com and just spell out the word New York. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jack Campbell from New York.
Thanks very much. Good evening, everyone. Congratulations again, Roberta. My name is Zach Campbell. I'm the community liaison at the American Museum of Natural History. I'm here to provide our monthly updates on the Gilder Center project. Last month, I had reported that we are approaching the end of the removals phase and would soon be transitioning to excavation and foundation. 2 of the 3 buildings slated for removal, buildings 15 and 15A, have been completely removed, and the concrete structure of building 16, formerly the glass pavilion, is being taken down, and that's ongoing. It's expected to be fully removed within a few more weeks. As I previously reported, we're going to be transitioning into excavation and foundation. The beginnings of excavation and foundation involve bringing additional machinery on site. And early excavation and foundation work will include underpinning to stabilize the subsurface soil and structure for some of the adjacent buildings, followed by supports of excavation. The number of construction workers and vehicles is also anticipated to increase slightly for these activities, and we'll continue to report out on that. If you have not already, please sign up for our e-blast by visiting www.amnh.org and navigating to the Gilder Center link. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker will be Sheila Kendrick, followed by Peter Arnson.
I'm Sheila Kendrick with Save Central Park NYC. Our group wants to thank CB7 for passing the many resolutions in support of fair and responsible development, all with the goals of protecting our quality of life in Central Park. Thank you. While the city has made minor modifications to zoning, Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal and Senator Robert Jackson have introduced legislation that will close 3 of the most egregious loopholes that are resulting in mega towers. We have a petition on change.org that will convince 44 legislators in Albany to support this bill. Please sign up with your email tonight. We have a couple of people with clipboards here, and we will send you the link. We are not anti-development. We are for development like CB7 that is consistent with the underlying zoning and the intent. We also want to recognize Roberta Seamer, the chair of CB7, who's been tireless in this fight. We appreciate your years and your commitment to the preservation of the Upper West Side and to New York City as a whole.
Good evening, Peter Arnson with the Columbus Amsterdam Bid. I'm here to speak about events. Before I do, I've got to speak a little bit about 107th Street. A woman who was taken out tonight in a black van, her belongings in black garbage bags. The car backed down the street because it wouldn't go past or through us. But they intended to empty the building by Friday. The women are being threatened with being removed from the system if they don't sign papers saying they agree to be moved to disparate parts of the city. One of the women who works in the neighborhood is being moved to College Point, where there's no good transportation and a riot and will lose access to programs that she's a part of and to the people that she serves in the neighborhood with her work. I'm upset. Anyway, for events, where do you start? There's this in the back of the room, and there's also a flyer about BAIP, Bloomingdale Aging in Place, and how they were formed as a neighborhood group to serve their neighbors. That is going to be happening here in October. The other thing that I'll mention is that Day of the Dead will be coming up, and one of our local restaurants is doing some things with that, and we are collecting people to be tree stewards to work with the trees in our neighborhood and try and keep them alive, which is particularly important over the last couple of weeks where we haven't had rain. So if anybody is interested, our phone number and our email is on the back of this.
Thank you so much, Peter. Our next speaker is Hazen Connor, followed by Ruth Levine.
Well, I didn't know that I was speaking this quickly. But hi, my name is Hazen Kyler. I spoke last month. I'm the artistic director of a theater, film, art, and music company called the Greenhouse Ensemble. And right now, I spoke last month about we're developing alongside Goddard Riverside and the Bernie Wall Center a Upper West Side theater and art district, which we want to be the home and the hub for independent theater, independent artists from around New York to be able to come to the area between 96 and 86 to create a beacon for audiences and artists. I wanted to update you. We have a symposium that we've scheduled for anyone who wants to be involved, who wants to talk about how this program can run. It's hosted by the Bernie Wall Center. It'll be happening on November 13th. That's a Wednesday. And then I'll also be speaking at the Foundation Center downtown about the same subject on October 28th. That's basically it. Thank you guys for your time.
Ruth Levine, followed by Paul Fisher.
I'm Ruth Levine. I reside at 303 West 66th Street. That's the building west of West End that's directly across from the ABC building. We have a couple of issues that we think are going to be exacerbated as that development, whatever it is, goes forward, and we would ask that you try and help us with that. We find it already increasingly difficult to exit the driveway safely. We would request that either a mirror be put on the right side of the driveway so we can see oncoming traffic, or perhaps that daylighting occur and one parking space to the left of the driveway be removed. The second concern that we have is with the sewer basin, which is located to the right of the driveway. That is the low point. We get drainage from both West End Avenue and from Riverside. Particularly as the park is finished at Riverside and we get less and we get more impermeable surface, we expect that that sewer basin will continue to be backed up, and we would like that addressed.
Paul Fisher. Paul. Our next speaker is Hannah Wonderman from Congress Danvers' office.
One of the reasons term limits were imposed were the voters' distrust of some elected officials who appoint people to community boards. That's why I think that the chair of Community Board 7 should have 2 one-year terms and not 3. That would add to our diversity and give more people an opportunity to serve. I spoke about this at the last full board meeting, and I was advised afterward to bring it to the bylaws committee. I went to the bylaws committee and they chose not to discuss it. So I figured at the next bylaws committee, they'd bring it up, we would get to talk about it. That was at the last minute postponed until after this election, which doesn't pass the smell test. And so I think before we vote tonight, we should vote on whether we want the chair of Community Board 7, whoever it may be, to have a 2-year term or a 3-year term.
Point of information. If the issue can be brought up to be considered by the bylaws.
Well, okay, so the bylaws committee will take it up, but the way the bylaws committee is working is they're going section by section. And so when they get to that section, they will certainly, that will be one of the things that they will discuss. Our next speaker, just before Hannah, I'm sorry, one more public speaker, is Mac Cruz. You will have 1 minute.
Hello everyone, my name is Nikai Cruz. Thank you for having me this evening. I'm actually a resident, grew up on 104 at Central Park West. I'm an outreach coordinator for the Civilian Complaint Review Board. Has anybody ever heard of the Civilian Complaint Review Board? Alrighty. As you know, we're a city agency that is independent of the NYPD. We investigate, mediate, and in some instances, administratively prosecute police officers for misconduct. Our jurisdiction is finite, however. It is known as FADO, F-A-D-O. That's force, abuse of authority, discourtesy, and offensive language. You can file a complaint if you witness or you feel you've been mistreated in any way by calling 311 or by calling our 1-800 number. You can also go to our website at www.ccrb.nyc.gov. And lastly, of course, you can file your complaint in person at our office at 100 Church Street downtown or at your local police precincts. I have business cards available and more information if you'd like to reach out. As I said, I'm an outreach coordinator. My team will come out to your communities, no matter if that's a school, a house of worship, or a house party. Nights and weekends, we are available to present this information to the public. Also, we are on the ballot this year. I stress you all to vote, as I'm sure you all do. There are 5 ballot proposals. Feel free to check it out. We have pamphlet information on the desk outside. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's fine, right?
Hi folks, I'm Hannah Wienerman from Congressman Nather's office. So you've seen the news, we're busy. I will send your applause to DC. So Chairman Nather and the Judiciary Committee is continuing to collate and investigate and turn over their best evidence for possible articles of impeachment. Stay tuned. Once I know, you'll know. I'll make sure to give a nice update. We're also making sure that we're doing our legislative agenda in DC as well. We had hearings on gun control, policing, oversight with the ICE detention, the Muslim bans. We're working really hard to make sure that we can be both oversight and legislative bodies. At the same time, we're also making sure that we're involved in local issues. So we signed on to the letter for the 107th Women's Shelter. We submitted testimony to the BSA about West 66th Street, 3350 West 66th Street. And this morning, there was a press conference with Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez and Congressman Nather is an original co-sponsor of a bill to get $32 billion for NYCHA with the $70 billion for public housing overall. So, you know, we can kind of walk and chew gum at the same time. If you ever have any federal questions, feel free to contact our office. Thank you.
Councilmember Helen Rosenthal.
To follow Jerry Nadler's staff. We are all counting on him, so that's rough for me, but happy for him, and he'll do a great job. So hi everyone, how are you? Happy fall, happy new year for those who celebrate.